Hello, everyone, and welcome to the African Leadership Connect. My name is Michael Nanaya Onimo, and I'm going to be your host for today. So, for today, we'll be talking about budgeting, and we are basically going to look at what is it, how to develop a budget, how to stick to a budget, which is very, very important, some tips on managing a budget, as well as some apps out there to help you manage your budget. As I mentioned in my earlier, the first episode on the personal finance management series, money is something that a lot of people don't want to talk about, especially the young people, because if it's not about how to make more money, they are not interested. But no matter how much you earn, if you don't have a clear plan or you don't know how to manage it, you are going to end up losing it anyways. So, as I was saying, what a lot of young people lack nowadays when they start earning money is on how to manage their finances, and this ends up leaving them in a whole lot of debt, living from hand to mouth, and even struggle when there is a change in their employment status or how they make their income. As a result of this, that is why for the next few weeks I am dedicating it to personal financial management. We are looking into various topics on how to manage our personal finances, and I believe in that because mostly when the year begins, a lot of people have new year resolutions and this, but people don't really look at, okay, how do I manage the money that I have so that I can know where I'm lacking or how to increase whatever money that I'm making. So we are really going to focus a lot on personal financial management, and for this particular episode I want us to focus specifically on budgeting. So, without wasting much time, let's go straight into budgeting. So, now let's ask ourselves the question, what is a budget? So, budget is one of the fundamental tools, tools I would say, or topic when you want to really understand personal financial management. It's basically, I would say, designing how you want to allocate your money. You make some money, you earn some income. Budgeting is basically saying taking that money, taking that income that you are earning, and then deciding where to allocate that money. Where are you going to spend that money that you've earned? And part of this involves figuring out how much are you actually earning and where is that money also going. So it's very important to take note of that. Figure out how much are you earning, where are you earning it from, and where is that money going to be spent. That is a very simple definition of budgeting. One thing I would like to bring to your attention as we are talking about budgeting is that it's not about perfection. It's about just improving day by day, improving what you've been doing, and then making sure that you implement it. You get better over time. As time goes on, you keep getting better at how you budget and the time that it takes for you to budget. So don't take heart and then be concerned that, oh, maybe I've never done budgeting before. I'm here to guide you through, and that is why we are having this episode, and then we are also having this video for you to see, or if you are listening via any of the various audio podcast channels, how you are going to learn about how to budget. So take it and then follow me, listen, watch, and then just put it to practice. It's all about implementation. It's not going to be from 0 to 100, but you take it step by step, and I can guarantee you, if you follow, within a few months, you will get very good at budgeting. So, some background information. All the things I'm sharing with you are things that have come from my research and also things that I've implemented in my own life. So I'm not just going to give you some theories here and there that I have not put to practice. I have my background, my first degree is in accounting, but it was not really until 2018 that I really took budgeting serious. I had been budgeting over a period of time. Some months I was budgeting depending on my expenses and things like that. But it was not until 2018, getting towards the beginning of 2018, that I really decided to make a conscious effort to have a real budget month after month, planning for the year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years in advance, taking my yearly goals, having a budget, and then even at the monthly level, having a consistent budget running. And I can tell you for a fact that my life has not been the same again. I have much more control over my money, over my income, over revenue, anything coming in, and then also on the outflows. So what I'm talking and what I'm going to share with you is going to come from experience and also research on what experts have proven to be the right way to handle our personal finances. One of my experiences before I started budgeting, which I believe some of you might also experience, is you get money at the beginning of the month or at the end of the month, depending on how, if you are working, your salary is paid, or if you are working for yourself, when you pay yourself, and things like that. But then in the middle of the month, you start wondering, where did the money go? Like, I had X amount of money 3 days ago, but right now I can't account for it. I don't know what happened. Where did I spend the money? What did I buy? I don't know what I bought, but the money is gone. Yeah, some of you are beginning to smile and say, yeah, that is me. I also went through the same stage, and then I decided that, look, I need to have total control over my finances, because I need to know where my money is coming from and where the money is going. And that is exactly what budgeting did for me. When I had to ask myself those questions, where did my money go and things like that, I was just puzzled. However, when I started budgeting, I started noticing some trends. I started actually keeping track of where things were going. There was a point where I could know 90% of my money, where that money was going. But one thing I would like to say is that at the beginning, it wasn't a walk in the park, if I should call it that way. It wasn't easy, because this was something that I had not been used to doing it a lot of times. So there were some months that actually I will have a budget, but I will not follow it. There were some months that I did not even create my budget for that month. But then one thing I realized was, anytime I had a budget and I did not follow it, or anytime I did not have a budget, I really struggled that month. Like, I would not know where the money went, where did I spend the money. I couldn't give any accountability to myself. At the end of the month, or even before the month ends, I'm broke. And I keep asking myself, where did I spend this money? What did I spend it on? I couldn't answer. But then as I just kept going at it, like, okay, this month maybe I did a budget, but I was not able to do it. But at least those months that I kept track, even if I lost, like maybe at the middle of the month or at the end of the month, I didn't have enough money as to what I should have had, I was at least able to go back to the budget and then see those expenses that I paid for, or those places that I actually spent the money. So it actually started helping me to give accountability to myself, not to anyone, but to myself, as to where the money went. So I could see, oh, okay, I actually spend this money here, I spend this money here, I spend that money here. So that was one way that I started getting used to budgeting. If the month comes and I did not follow the budget, yes, it's okay. But one thing I really got good at, and I started telling myself to do, is to be consistent. You do the budget as a first priority. I have the budget. Then my next question is, did I follow the budget? If I did not follow the budget, then it's easy to correct myself, because now I know I had a budget, but I did not follow it, because those are two separate things. It's one thing to have a budget, and it's another thing to have that discipline to follow the budget. But then it was more of a thing of just keep doing it, just keep doing it. And I realized that as the months passed and as the years passed, it became much more easier for me to follow my budget. Now I know, okay, once this income's coming or income coming, this is where my priority is. This is where I need to first do. Some of the, even the deductions are automatic. So it doesn't even have to be done by me manually. But then I just kept getting better and better and better and better. And every single month, every single day, every single hour, I got better. So that is something for you. I just want you to know about budgeting. It's not that you just start and immediately you get over it. It will take a couple of months, can take even some years for people to really develop that budget, that habit of budgeting, and then actually sticking to the budget. It's not a very sexy thing, if I have to call it, to do. It's not a very glamorous thing to do, but what I can tell you is it pays off at the end. At the end, I can guarantee you having a budget and sticking to it pays off. I've been talking a bit about why you need to have a budget and what is a budget. But now let's look at some of the reasons why it's very important for you to have a budget of your own. Yes, I'm talking to you. It's time for you to have a budget of your own. And if you have one, congratulations. But my question will be, are you sticking to the budget, and even which type of budget do you have and how effective it is in helping you achieve your financial goals? So we'll talk more about it. But for now, let's look at the importance of having a budget. Number one, I would say, is to help you identify your income and expenses. Where is your income coming from and which expenses do you have? Number two, it will help you to identify where your money is actually being spent. So you're getting the money, but where are you spending that money? It gives you an overview. Depending on how detailed your budget is, it can actually help you know exactly where you are spending your money. And depending on how good you are with tools like Excel and other budgeting tools, it could even give you percentage of which part of your money is being spent on which expenses. So that is a very cool thing to know. At the end of the day, if you're into numbers like me, that makes a lot of sense for me to know exactly which percentage of my income, for example, is being spent on my rent, is being spent on maybe servicing a loan, is being spent on maybe my savings for my holiday or something like that. That is very interesting thing to have and to know. Another importance, or the third importance I would say, is it helps you to prioritize your money. Because now when you have a budget, you have your source of income, how much money you are bringing in, and then you also have your expenses lined up. So now you have to prioritize which expenses are you going to take care of first. Are you going to start off with your savings? Are you going to start off with your investment? Are you starting off by clearing some loans? Are you going to start off by paying your rent, paying your utilities and things like that? So it helps you to prioritize your expenses or where you are going to spend the money. And then also for those who are having loans, who are in debt, it also helps you in your debt payment strategy. Like, okay, you are able to identify, okay, which loans do I have, which debt do I have, what percentage interest am I paying on them, and how am I going to clear this debt. So you know that, okay, this income is coming in, this is where I'm going to spend, what percentage is going towards repaying your debt and things like that. And then lastly, I would say is having a budget helps you to achieve your savings goals. So we earlier on in the previous episode, we talked about having a financial goals, having some goals for yourself. And one of such goals is savings. How much do you want to save at the end of a calendar year? How much do you want to save every month? Because that will be determined by what your annual goal is. Or for you, maybe you just want to go month by month, that maybe I want to save 5%, 10%, or things like that. So having a budget can actually help you towards your savings goal, because now you can clearly allocate what percentage of your income goes towards your savings. There are multiple savings. You could have savings for school, savings to buy a house, savings to buy a car, savings for your kids' education, savings to go on a holiday, a whole lot of reasons to have savings. So all of these things will come in towards your saving goals. But having a budget helps you to achieve some of these sales goals, because at the end, when you are making a budget, you can allocate what percentage of your income or revenue or whatever you are earning, that will go towards your savings. Now we've had a look at what a budget is. We've looked at why is it important to have a budget. Why is it very important to have a budget? We've looked at those 5 reasons why I've given you to have a budget. So now let's look at some of the budgeting methods available, so that you can know, okay, how am I going to start? Now I know what a budget is, I know why it's important to have a budget, but now how do I budget, or what method do I use in budgeting? So there's this several budgeting methods, like we have the 50-30-20, we have the 50-20-20-10, we have the zero based budget. There are so many of them, pay yourself first, and etc. However, for our discussion today, I'm going to zero down on 3 budget methods that you can use, especially if you are new to budgeting. So let's zero in on them, let's dig deep, and then let's talk about the first budgeting method I want to introduce to you. So the first budgeting method I want to introduce to you is zero-based budgeting. And zero-based budgeting is very simple. The definition is very simple. Subtract all your expenses from your income until you get to zero. As simple as that. This budget is for people who can reasonably estimate their monthly income, because you have to be it requires you to be very precise to know exactly how much you are going to earn. So for example, let's say you are a salary earner, you can easily estimate or know that, okay, at the end of the month I am going to get X amount of money because that is what my contract says and I'm working for it. So you know at the end of every month you are going to get X amount of money. So you add up all the income that you are expecting as precisely as you can. Then you basically take out all your expenses out of it until you get to zero. That is what it means. This budget requires someone who can plan your expenses as accurately as you can, because if you miss out something, it will come back to bite you. Because you are deducting everything till you get to zero, you should really have a very well-defined expense categories. So for example, let's say for me, I will say maybe I have my rent, I have to pay for my rent. I have my utilities, I have to pay for my water, my electricity, my Netflix account. I have, let's say, things like when I was schooling, my school fees. Let's say the fees of my kid, I have to put it in the upkeep of my kid. Let's say my expenses during the month, food, transportation, things like that. Let my savings, let's say the investment tools that I have. So I have to really break it down. Maybe some family upkeep for maybe the family, some or members of the family. You have to really break it down into very specific expenses, and then you allocate a value to it. In allocating a value, for example, in savings, it could be in percentage wise, that maybe I want to save 20% of the income I'm earning in my savings, or 20% goes into my investment vehicles, or you pay tithe, 10% already has to go in there. So you have to really have a very well-defined expense categories and expense list, so that will help you know exactly where the money is going to go. So once you have drawn this up, then you start deducting it from your salary or from your income until it gets to zero. That is how it works. And as I mentioned earlier, if you are not careful with the planning and you leave out one expense item or 2 or 3 categories, it can really come back to bite you, because then you find yourself having budgeted or taking care of all your other expenses, and then this one that you did not plan for comes to demand for that money. So either you tap into another category you had planned for to solve this or to take care of this expense, or you have to dig a little bit deeper, maybe into your previous savings, that you have somewhere to take care of it. So that is how that can, I would say, one of the drawbacks of having a zero-based budgeting. And based on how precise you have to be, it's really not the ideal budgeting method if this is your first time in budgeting. It's ideal for someone who has been doing budgeting for a while, or someone who can really drill down on their income and then on their monthly expenses. I think mine is like a full A4 sheet of just line by line. I break it down as detailed as I can. But it's not everyone who can do that. We have to appreciate that fact that not everyone can be as detailed. Someone just to have a broad category of things. So that is not going to be ideal for such people. But for people who can really drill down on their income and on their expenses, this becomes an ideal way to do your budgeting. And since there's very little room for error in terms of your expenses, I will not recommend it for someone who is new to budgeting, or someone who is not very numbers oriented or so much into numbers. I will not recommend that for you. But if you've done budgeting, you understand your numbers, and you really are very comfortable on how to really categorize your expenses into very fine line items. I have to say line items, use the accounting lingo of line items, but then meaning you can really break down your broad individual expenses and then put a value to it, then this will be a very good budgeting method for you. So that is it on zero-based budgeting. Let's go on to the next one. So the second budgeting method I would like to introduce you to is the pay yourself budget, and it's very simple. It focuses on primarily focuses on savings and debt repayment, and it's very simple. Every month, once you know your income, you put aside a certain amount of money or a percentage of it. Let's say you are earning $1,000 a month, and then you decide that, okay, looking at my savings and my debts that I have, the loans and things that I have, 30% or 40% of that $1,000 will go and take care of that. So let's say you put aside $400 to take care of your savings and your debt repayment. Then that remaining 60% or $600, it's up to you to spend it the way you want it. So it doesn't really put you down on the details as to where are you spending the money exactly. You've taken care of the most important thing to you at that moment, which is to say, okay, I have my saving goal. Maybe 10% of my earnings has to go into my savings, and then I have debt that I'm paying, which makes up, let's say, 30% of my earnings. Now, once I've taken care of these two, then whatever I have left is going into any other expenses that I have. So if you are renting, for example, you could say that, okay, maybe my rent, my utilities, my savings, and then my debt repayment. This will be, let's say, the four things. And when you look at your calculation, maybe it makes up about 60% of your earnings. So once you get your income, you get your salary, whatever you are earning, however you are earning it, you take out this 60% of it, you take care of these 4 or 5 things, then the rest of the money, it's up to you to spend it. So you just spend it until you go down to zero. Then you have nothing left. So one drawback of that is you might not use that money, or that money you have left might not get you to your next paycheck if you are earning salary, or to the next time when you are earning an income. So it requires a bit more of discipline on your side to make sure that you don't just spend all that whatever is left in the next 2 weeks. Before, if you are earning on a monthly basis, then you have to make sure that whatever you have left is sufficient, or you manage it in such a way that it will get you to the next payday, or to the next time you are going to earn an income. If you are paid every 2 weeks, if you are paid weekly, then it's up to you to know how you are going to allocate that money. But in terms of simplicity, it's very simple. Take out what you consider to be the need. Remember, we talked about needs versus wants. Take out what you consider to be the needs, pay them off, and then the want is what now you have with you, or those things which are not like very critical, or yeah, you take care of that, and then you just spend the rest however you want to spend it until your next payday or until your next time you are going to earn your income. So that is one of the drawbacks, but then also it's ideal for someone who is starting to budget, because you don't really have to go into details as the zero-based budget, but you just have to look at a few things that you really need to take care of. Take care of those things, and then the rest of the money is yours to spend it however you want to spend it. So I would say this is something that a new or a beginner to budgeting can start off with, and then you can evolve over a while, over a time, or things like that. And one thing to take note of it, even though I'm talking of budgeting methods, don't see it as a very fixed kind of things. A very fixed kind of approach to budgeting, that okay, if I'm doing zero-based budgeting, I have to be zero-based budgeting all throughout, or I'm doing pay yourself first budgeting, it has to be that. Depending on your experience and how you've come across budgeting, there are times when you can mix and match. I told you earlier on, I do the zero base, but then I've modified it a little bit because I have some fixed saving goals. So these are things that I make sure they are taken care of first before now I sort of come down into other expenses. So you can see it has a bit of the pay yourself first element in there, and then also the zero based element. But if you're a beginner, it's always to start from one place, and then as time goes on, you see yourself evolving slowly and merging in some other methods into it to suit your financial goals. So this is basically upon you to decide, but if you're a beginner, I'll recommend start off with one and then slowly get into it, adding other methods to it. So this is on pay yourself budgeting. Let's look at the third budgeting method that I want to introduce to you.